The serve is different from every other shot in pickleball because it's the only shot we hit where we don't have to react to our opponent's previous shot. It's the only shot we hit where we're in complete control. And if you find yourself struggling with your opponent's returns, maybe they're hitting really aggressive returns, or you're just not getting offensive opportunities on that third shot, it could be greatly due to the fact that you're not following the correct recipe. And with any shot in pickleball, there are specific ingredients that we have to add to the recipe to be able to make that shot effective. With the serve in specific, there are 3 ingredients that you have to add into your serve to make it as effective as possible so that you can be aggressive with that next shot. The only problem is that only the top level pros have access to this recipe. But good thing for you guys, I'm gonna be sharing with you the exact cookbook you need so that you can have these 3 specific ingredients and make your serve the most difficult serve to return in pickleball. I'm Coach Austin Hardy, and if you're new here, welcome. Pickleball Playbook is a place that you can come to learn new strategies, tactics, and techniques to help take your pickleball game to the next level. So if that sounds like you, if you'll take 10 seconds and hit that subscribe button, I would appreciate it a ton. And my promise to you is that you will become a better pickleball player as a result, because I'll be able to keep making videos just like this one, lob serve. There's absolutely a time and a place to do that as a changeup every once in a while, but that's not gonna necessarily cause your opponents to hit a weak return. A lot of the time, that's just baiting them into hitting a really hard return, and sometimes they'll get away with it and hit a winner. Majority of the time they're gonna miss the shot. So that can be a fantastic changeup. I'm not saying that we're just hitting them a lob serve by height, but what I am saying is if we can get a little bit more height on that ball and it's bouncing high, it's way more difficult for them to return. Because if I'm returning a shot and it's in my strike zone, meaning it's below my waist, that's really simple, that's really comfortable for the vast majority of players to hit. But when it gets outside of our strike zone, which is above the waist, it's really awkward. And sometimes you can play against players that have so much height on the ball and so much depth that they're getting it to land and bounce up towards your shoulder. And so this is a really difficult position to, first of all, get any power on the ball. So if you don't miss the serve altogether, miss that return, you're probably gonna pop the ball up from this position. So first ingredient is getting that depth. Second ingredient is getting that height. So now our opponents are leaning back because of the depth, and because of the height, they're hitting it in an awkward position. You're gonna get a lollipop return coming back that you can then tee off on. If you guys are in need of a paddle, bags, or balls, you can go to thelockerroompickleball.com and use code Playbook at checkout to get 15% off your entire order. It doesn't matter how many times you order through the link, it will always be 15% off. And they have access to literally every single ball that you could imagine, every single paddle that you can imagine. I've been using this new Ben Johns 4. I absolutely love it. It's a fantastic paddle, one of my favorites that I've ever used. You get insane power on the ball, you get insane spin, and the sweet spot is everywhere. Even if you hit the frame, the ball goes in. I don't know exactly what they did with this paddle, but if I were to recommend a paddle to someone, this would be the one. They have that one on there. They also have all of the main brands like Selkirk and Carbon, and the list goes on and on and on. So if you want to get 15% off, go to thelockerroompickleball.com, use code Playbook at checkout, or you can click right here. Ingredient number 3 isn't 100% necessary all the time, but if you can add this ingredient and add it consistently, it's gonna be way more difficult for your opponents when you add the other 2 ingredients along with it. And that ingredient is power. So getting power on our serves. And I'm gonna be teaching you guys how you can get that power with that technique. But first, I wanna explain something. So if I hit a normal serve, let's say that I'm swinging at 50% power, okay? I'm getting height and I'm getting depth. That's gonna be a really difficult serve to return because it has that height, it has that depth, and it has 50% power. But if I can get it in consistently by hitting 70% power, so I add just a little bit more power to it, if I can get that in consistently like that, then obviously I wanna go 70% power majority of the time. Am I gonna hit the ball in 90% of the time by doing that 70% power? If so, I should probably keep hitting with 70% power. If instead I'm hitting it in 10 out of 10 times, then bump it up to 80% power. The problem is that a lot of players think in order to get power on their serve, they have to hit at 100%. If you ever hit at 100%, your whole body tenses up and you lose out on a ton of power. So the highest that I recommend going personally is about 80 to 85%. If you go any higher than that, you tense up, you can't stay loose. And whenever we're hitting a serve, in order to get power on the serve, we wanna act like our arm is a noodle. If you think about a whip, when it whips through something, the reason that it has so much energy that it releases is because it is so relaxed. It's not stiff. If instead it was just a board, if you can imagine a board and you're hitting it onto the ground, it's not gonna have as much energy, it's not gonna be as fast as a whip that completely loads up. So we have to think that same thing. I like to actually think my arm is a spaghetti noodle right prior to serving. That helps me stay really loose throughout the motion. So now that you know the 3 ingredients, let's talk about the specific technique that you need to be able to implement these ingredients. So the serve technique is really simple. So a lot of players, especially beginners, they'll start low and they'll patty cake their serve up just like this. The first part is that you want to have a unit turn so that your paddle face is starting high so that it can build momentum and then come through the shot. If you lose out on that momentum, you'll never be able to create as much power from that position. But more importantly, you're not going to be able to create spin to bring the ball back down. In order to create spin, we have to draw a C through the shot. So our first thing that we're doing is pointing towards the side fence, tip of paddle up, paddle face flush with that side fence. Once we're in this position, we're dropping our paddle down and doing what's called petting the dog. When I pet a dog, I'm gonna pet it with my palm of my hand. I'm not gonna pet it with the side of my hand. So if I come down like this is incorrect, because this would be like me petting it with the side of my hand. I'm gonna pet it with my palm. So we want palm down. That's gonna help us to be able to create spin and not lose out on a ton of power. So I wanna be here. We'll lose a ton of power being in this position. If you don't quite understand that, just try it for yourself and you'll see the difference between the two. But make sure that that paddle face is down. So tip up, pointing towards the side fence, paddle face down, petting the dog. Notice how my whole base is low right now. I'm low and I'm loaded as I'm about to come and crack through this ball. Paddle face up towards the side fence, tip up, tip goes towards the back fence as I pet that dog, and then I'm coming outwards and upwards. Okay, the motion's not low to high, it's outwards and upwards. I'm coming out, 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 up, as if I'm going off a ramp. Picture like a dirt bike shooting off a track, out and up through that motion. Now the most important thing in order to bring our ball back down is to create the windshield wiper. So as we begin that motion upwards, we're going to just take our tip from pointing downwards to pointing upwards through our motion as we finish high. The reason that we want to finish high is because that's how we're going to be able to create height on the ball. If we finish low over here, we're not going to have a ton of height on our ball, which that's one of the parts of the recipe to have a really difficult serve. So we need to make sure that we have it. So I'm turning here towards the side fence, pet the dog, outwards and upwards, and then right here, that windshield wiper motion, and then I'm finishing high. Now, just like how I said, I'm loaded in this position. When I make contact with the ball, I'm standing through the shot, finishing by stepping this foot into the court. That's really the key ingredients to the recipe behind the technique is towards the side fence, down, pet the dog, outwards and upwards. Remember that windshield wiper. Remember to finish high and lean forward into the court. All right, now I'm going to share with you guys the 3 drills that you want to do to be able to practice this serve and practice those key ingredients of height, depth, and power. So this is what's known as the bowling drill. So if you've ever been out bowling, you want to act like you're bowling a ball. That's actually the same exact motion as a serve. It's just that underhand toss. And with this in specific, I'm trying to get height on this ball where it's going way high up into the sky, okay? So I'm coming up and I'm shooting through that ball. And then most importantly, I'm getting that windshield wiper to where it's getting topspin. So I'm brushing that ball out in front and I brush through the shot. So getting tons of height on the ball. Now, as soon as you add a paddle and you do that same exact motion, you're not gonna have high loopy shots just like this. But if you do the opposite and try to get this ball perfectly into the court like this, your entire motion is going to be thrown off. And when you pick up your paddle, you're going to hit every single ball either into the ground right in front of you or into the net. So we're looking to get that height and we're starting with that same exact motion. Paddle tip high, meaning fingers high, just like this. Pet the dog, outwards and upwards, and then I'm brushing over that ball as I lean into my shot. All right, drill number 2 is the Julian Arnold drill. This is one of my favorite drills for getting depth on my serve. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna actually try to miss your serve long. So you're looking to get it past the baseline. This is one of the best warm-up drills that you can do. And so you're hitting them long, and what you'll see is you'll still, like those last 2, you'll still hit serves in by doing this. But it helps you to be able to find your range. So I'm focused on hitting it long for the first about 10 or so. Long, yep, that's long. And I'm slowly bringing it in. So now that I've hit about 6 or so, now I have that depth that I need, but I'm not worried about hitting it long, okay? That helps me to be able to hit that depth every single time. I'm within a couple of feet of the baseline every single time, but it starts with that progression of not being scared of hitting it long. Obviously in a match, you don't want to do this, but this is just specifically for practice. And prior to a match, it's one of the best drills that you can do to be able to get depth on your serves. So start by missing it long and then slowly bring it in. Remember, if the serve is going long, that probably means that we need to bring the height of it down rather than the power that we're hitting. Because the higher we hit over the net, the further that ball is going to travel. Okay, drill number 3 is the Jaume Martinez Vic step-in drill. If you've ever seen Martinez Vic hit a serve, he steps in and then he hits his serve. So he starts a couple of feet behind the baseline. What this does is it helps you to be able to utilize your legs as you come through the motion. I actually like to hit my serve just like this when I'm hitting a normal serve, but you can practice this way and then go back to your normal serve after that. Another positive to moving into your serve is that it relaxes you as you move in. It doesn't get your feet extremely stiff. The more that we can move, obviously the more relaxed we're gonna be. So you start just a couple of feet behind the baseline and you have your feet separated. You shuffle step in with your dominant foot towards your non-dominant, and then your non-dominant foot steps towards the baseline, and then you make contact with the shot. So we're just doing that little bit of a step in through the motion to help us utilize our legs and move forward through the shot, and also helps to relax us. So I'm in this position, step in. That first initial step is the shuffle. Our dominant foot is going to our non-dominant foot here, then we step, and then we hit. So let me show you guys a few more of those. Into that motion. Remember, we're still trying to get that depth and that height on the ball as we swing through the shot. If you're struggling with the location of your serve, focus on where that front hip is pointing. So your non-dominant hip is ultimately the arrow that's gonna point towards wherever your ball is going to go. So if you're struggling with direction, point that arrow towards that location, and then you can come through it. It's just at the point of contact, wherever that's pointing is generally where the ball is going to go. Another big factor in where the ball goes is your point of contact. If you're contacting it out in front of you, the further that way it's gonna go. The further behind you you contact it, the further that way. So if you're doing everything you can to point that hip towards that side of the court and it's still coming over here, it's because you're contacting it too far out in front. So try to contact it more towards where your knee is, and then it will automatically go in that direction. All right, that's everything for this video. If you enjoy this style of video, leave me a thumbs up below. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you don't enjoy this style of video, leave me a thumbs down below. Other than that, watch this video right here if you want to continue to improve your pickleball game, and I will see you over there.